I'm welcoming here Hawkin. He's a geologist with 8 years of experience in North America and Australia, and a year in software development with a Toronto startup. He has experience in resource estimation, production, and exploration of gold, lithium, rare earth elements, and nickel-copper-PGEs. Before joining Datamine in February 2025, he held senior roles in Kalgoorlie Goldfields, focused on underground mining, and he is proficient in both implicit and explicit wireframing, various resource estimation techniques, and he supports and trains our users on Datamine products such as Studio Geo, Supervisor, and Studio Geo. Welcome, buddy.
Thanks, boss, for that introduction. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking following two of your absolute industry idols, so I'm going to try to do my best not to make a fool of myself. My topic today is DMX, the new X Factor in Studio RM 3.0, our latest iteration of our flagship product, Studio RM. And we're going to try to shrink your files and not your brain. And I'm going to hopefully go through how we're going to do that. So what we'll cover, obviously, Studio RM 3, the update is not specific to resource modeling. Studio RM, if you do not already know, the RM stands for resource modeling, but it is actually very, very widely used in the industry for all sorts of other high precision purposes, such as signing off mining plans, designing drill holes, that kind of thing. So we got a little something for everyone, more specifically in the graphics improvement. The underlying engine has been rebuilt. We now have the ability to view wireframes as field solids, and if you're an undiagnosed dyslexic OCD ADHD like me, you like dark mode, and we now have dark mode as well. For resource geology, of course, we have the new X Factor, the DMX, and also we are introducing a new import product or import process called Intex, and that works with a brand new front end called Import Multiple Tables. We'll see how that works. For compositing, those of you that like absolute equal support, there is a new mode in CompDH, and there is additional rotated model support for quite a few processes, more specifically for the building of prototype models. And if you like combining models, I'm going to show you how to combine triangles. For the mine geologists out there, those of you that really like compiling your significant intercepts, we now have a brand new plotting tool, and it is 2025. We recognize that the plotting tool needs a bit of love, so that's been refreshed. Hopefully you'll like it, and we'll have a precise clip string to wireframe functionality as well. The 4 pillars of Studio RM focuses first and foremost on the visualization and graphics. So as I mentioned earlier, the underlying engine for visualization has been changed, and that should hopefully lead to better and more smooth graphics, reduce the amount of crashes that you sometimes may or may not encounter. And the second one is around file management. So the DMX primarily focuses on reducing the file size, but also comes with a few additional benefits. The updated plots window, as aforementioned, those of you that do a lot of plotting in your everyday life, or you may or may not already export things out of Studio RM and do your plotting in external software, you no longer have to do that because it's so easy to use now. You're going to fall in love with it, I guarantee you. Or I did anyway. And then modeling and process enhancement wise, there's been quite a few improved CAD processes, as well as key processes related to the modeling itself. The latest version is actually Studio RM 3.0.366. Those of you that already have access to our portal, that has been actually one secret update since the official RM3 release on the 4th of July. The latest version was released on the 18th of July. So if you haven't already, download it, give it a try. So firstly, graphics improvement. You'll see that occasionally, if you have the luxury of updating to a 4K screen already, sometimes you'll see that RM doesn't quite work very well with 4K screen. That's now been fixed. your graphics should be as smooth as it will ever get. Zooming and clipping, there is now a automated back and front clipping, as well as better zoom tool for more seamless interaction. Previously, you would have to use something called the large data mode to make sure that your wireframe doesn't become clipped when you zoom in and out. That is now automatic by default, and that is in that automatic clipping setting. You can still turn that off if you prefer to have that clip view in your camera. But the next thing is with digitizing and snapping, particularly when you have a large amount of data visualized in your scene. Occasionally, you'll see that when you right-click and you want to snap to a particular point, you may be snapping right next to it. That should no longer happen, and you'll only believe it if you try it. So I can drum on it all you want, but ultimately, please give it a go. And refinement-wise, we've removed the stereo viewer, and there have been improvements to wireframe rendering and a couple other performance improvements. And of course, stability has been improved. Now, DMX, what is all the fuss about? So it is essentially a natively compressed file now. In most of our testing, generally, the equivalent file in a DM format or a Datamine proprietary file format is up to around 10%, 10 times, well, that is 10%, isn't it? Yeah. 10 times smaller than the equivalent file in DM format when you convert it into a DMX. And with the advent of large data, the more simulation you run, the more and more geometallurgical things that you have to estimate, deleterious elements, that kind of things. We recognize that the original constraint of 256 columns may no longer be enough for your block models and any large files like the survey drill hole files. So that limit has now been increased to 2048. I believe there's still room for further increase, but just for now, that number is the magic number. So go wild, estimate to your heart's content. And of course, with the DMX format and the 2048 columns, there's now also the ability to contain unlimited number of rows as opposed to the original 2 billion record limit. Metadata has been introduced in the form of tags, so things that you would have originally write to a implicit field, such as modeling date, the modeler, the data cutoff date, that kind of thing, for model-specific use, can now be contained as a tag, and that will not increase your file size significantly. Another very useful thing that will be interactive with scripting, that you can pull out key information without boggling down your hard drive space. And because we know a lot of you will still be on the DM format to begin with, even when you upgrade to RM3, because you may work with other vendors or you have other softwares that you just prefer for the time being before you become a fully integrated Datamine user, as we now provide the entire value chain. We do give you the ability to batch convert files from DM to DMX and vice versa. And as a few of my dear colleagues in the industry just found out, that is now fully scriptable as well. So if you're in a DM environment, you can save as DMX via scripting and vice versa. And just in case you didn't believe me, here's a example of a block model file. Now, I could have made this up, but trust me, I didn't. This is a block model that I've just converted from DM to DMX format, and this is the result. So the original file was 24 megabyte, not a huge model by any means, but the DMX format of the same exact model, same exact number of records, same exact attributes, is now less than 10% of the original size. Next, you asked, we listened. Viewing as a field solid is now available. So those of you that like doing reporting or making beautiful graphics, you now have the ability to change that as a field solid. You no longer have to rely on your block model to fill in the solids of your wireframe. You simply go in through your wireframe property tab or double clicking on the scene, whichever one you like, and tick on this fill solid. It's called experimental because it also currently acts as a sort of a impromptu wireframe validation tool. If your wireframe is not closed properly, this tool will actually help pick it out as well. I'll let you experience that yourself. Dark mode. If your soul is as dark as mine, you like this one. And the high contrast does help. Specifically, if you are one of those rare clients, I shouldn't say rare, one of those clients that do take a tough book underground or go into a very poorly lit environment, this is a great benefit. And those of you that have sat through some sort of training event with myself, I currently use the gray mode, and that is available through systems, look and feel, dark. Text importer, so not to be confused with the in-text process itself. The text importer is our new, essentially underlying driver for importing data into Studio RM. As you drag and drop stuff into the Studio RM 3D space, the underlying driver has been changed, and the text importer leverages that as well as the in-text process. So if you run through, for one reason or another, dragging and dropping the file into RM doesn't bring it up in 3D. A, it might not have a 3D overlay. B, you might just need to give it a little bit more help. And now that's easier than Now that's easier than ever. And we've tested this exact process on reasonably large file sizes, over 18 gigabyte block model in this specific example, and it's work much, much faster than the original import process. The added benefit is once you specify a particular set of data definition, you can import multiple spreadsheets or multiple delimited files. It doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. It can be a text. It can be a CSV. It will map through using the exact same data definition file and bring in all the files. So some examples of that would be things like estimation parameter files, drill holes, drill holes, colors, dependencies, downhole surveys, anything that you will likely encounter in your day-to-day workflow. The in-text process itself, like I mentioned before, is a macroable process that you can incorporate into your everyday workflow. And the front end of it is this one, that the text importer, or the hotkeys will be ITX. If you're like me, you prefer hotkeys. But the text importer, if you ever get confused, it's essentially the same as Code Creek is to the advanced estimation module. It just reads off the process, but making interaction a little bit easier. So you have the option of using the front end, or you can go through the process via the macro, or alternatively through the command bar. So compositing with residuals, those of you that already use the compdh command will know that there are currently two modes, mode 0 and mode 1. So in mode 0, everything gets composited to the fixed interval length. And if the last remaining segment is shorter than your targeted compositor length, in this example, I'm compositing to a 5 meter length, and the last sample was going to be 3 meters. In mode 0, if my minimum composite length is 5 meters, then that sample will get tossed out. But a new mode, mode 2, you now have the option of adding that particular residual sample to the last or the first sample composite, depending on whether or not you're compositing downhole or uphole, such that you no longer artificially throw out data because of the compositing method you choose. Of course, if you do already prefer using mode equals 1, which evenly spreads out your composite lengths within the domain, this will not impact you. But if you like having a fixed length, but don't want to artificially lose data right towards the end, you now have that option of adding that on to, like I said earlier, the first or the last of your composite. And even if you decided not to use them, you have the option of visualizing that in 3D with the additional residual output in CompDH. So then you can see what data you're giving up, whether or not you want to adjust your composite length. So with rotated block model support, this is the front end for the auto create prototype process. It now supports rotated model natively. And also, if you use the auto fit function, a lot of these numbers have been rounded up to create a nicer number, so you're not dealing with millions of decimals. And additionally, the rotated model origin, you can now freely define it, whereas previously it was just hard-coded essentially to 0, 0, 0, such that you now have the option of aligning your local grid after rotation with your world grid, if that's something that you would like. And finally, for the resource geologists in the room, if you are familiar with the AddMod and subsequently the CommMod super process, we now have an equivalent for triangles. So if you already use addTri and previously rely on a loop and some sort of list to add multiple triangles, you can now do very, very similar thing with triangle files with the CommTri process. The nice thing about CommTri is if the file name for the triangle and the point pair are essentially the same, you only have to specify the triangle part of that file. Datamine triangle files currently rely on two separate files. One stores the triangle and the other one stores the point file, which are the apexes of all those triangles. The general practice is they will generally have the same prefixes, just slightly different extension towards the end, the TR and the PT. If for whatever reason you decide to name them differently and map it after the fact, you cannot use this. But for probably 97% of you that have the same file extension, file prefix rather, for the triangle and the point file, this will suffice. And again, this is also macroable as well. For the mine geos in the room that may or may not have a few swear words on the Tuesday afternoon handover day trying to make a significant intercept report, our plotting has been improved. So the ribbons now have separate ribbon items for each of the plotting items that are within RM itself. So the manage ribbon looks like that, and where you manage your sheets or your tools for creating new plots, things of that nature. And also you can incorporate histograms, drill holes, that kind of thing, stereo nets. Your standard layout mode, so you still rely on clicking this button to change the dimensions of your plots, that kind of thing. But it's just now all consolidated to one place, and you can edit and change your projections of the sorts. The next part with plot items, as you click on each one of these plot item tool, you'll bring up a separate ribbon specific to each one of these tools. And the most worthwhile for mentioning is the ability to now edit your text box and title box with basically 2 clicks instead of a left click and a right click and a left click and a right click and go into another menu. And sorry, I drag on, but yeah. And also, you now have the ability to insert legends and change your filters. And before I jump on, I just want to show you what the, one more thing. Sections as well. So if you don't already have a set of section definitions, say for example, you want to show multiple sections through a model or drill fan, if you don't already have that defined in 3D, you now have the ability to define that and have it help you define it in the plotting view itself. And it's just a generally more pleasant process. These are all the plotting menus, so I'll let you read that for yourselves, but essentially anything from north arrows all the way down to the legend box now has its own separate pop up. But the only thing I want to show you out of all of this is this title box here. So it's now 2025. We're all short on time. Most of the teams are small. And in order to change your title, you now click on this box, come up to here, change your category of the content to static as you normally would, type it in here, the content you want, and Bob's your uncle. Your title box has now been changed. And just lastly, for the mine geos out there, people that sign off a lot of mining plans, designs, there is a new process called clip string to wireframe that perfectly clips any string object exactly to the boundaries of the wireframes. It's now no longer reliant on the centroids of the samples. It will change your strings in accordance to the actual boundary of the wireframe, provided that your wireframe is closed for closed solid and validated for any open surfaces. And just a few more commands that's been added, and also enhancement to the angle query tool. More specifically, we now have the ability to read things in degree, minutes, and seconds for better visualization. Same thing with drill hole wireframe intersection. You now have the intersection angles. So that brings me to the end of the updates. Obviously, this one being a really big update, there are a few things that we just had to prioritize. So there is a patch coming out just around the corner, specifically for some of the Coal Creek functions that we wanted to add but didn't get a chance to as of the 18th of July update. So keep an eye out for that patch that's coming out very, very soon, primarily focused on Coal Creek itself. And also there will be a few more bug fixes in the vein and grade shell tools. Upcoming, I believe the development team is now aiming for one release every quarter or at least every half a year, but RM 3.1 will focus on additional customer requests. So if you put in the feature request in the last 6 months, 2 years, 7 years, it's coming. It's coming. And project data bar improvements have been made as well, and also improvements to Boolean functions. Specifically, you can now do it via key fields as well. And ultimately, we will integrate it with the MineTrust data lake to provide that fully integrated mining value chains. Some of the more exciting features coming up is, as Anthony mentioned earlier, the Python integration, as well as evaluation and better reporting workflow, implicit modeling, which will work hand in hand with the Studio Geo solutions. And there will be enhanced self-boundary functionality with Coal Creek. And finally, there will be a brand new license manager coming that will help you track your usage and give you an overall better experience. And that's it.